Oh, hello. I think we're here, we're live together. Welcome to our episode 7 of the Hey, I don't think no. Oh, okay, here we are. For some reason it started another stream. Okay, so we're live. Alright, welcome to, if you didn't hear that first part, welcome to episode 7 of the Gestating Narratives piece from the Synthesize Being collection. And we're here together. We're going to continue working on this piece, Gestating Narratives. And so the first thing we want to do is to begin our ritual is to acknowledge the land that we stand on. We're on Coast Salish, occupied Coast Salish land, and I also want to recognize the Celtic cosmology that some of my ancestors are from and we're living within as I learn more about my different ancestors. And in their cosmology they recognized, based on what some scholars have revealed, are these 3 different realms: the sky above, the land in which we stand, and the sea that surrounds. And of course there's more to this to learn about and to explore and to think about how I might engage with it, and what it means to share this with you as well. So I encourage you to also acknowledge if you're on occupied land, where that might be, and occupied land of whatever indigenous peoples you are, and to recognize as we create our lives, as we go about our existence, these realms, these systems that we engage with are invoked subconsciously throughout our actions, and what crosses through our awareness, where do our and then also where do our dreams open up beyond this. So in this ritual, this is why I want to enter into a plane of imagination by raising the imagination flag, and then to lower it to be able to return to whatever place that we're at. And in raising it, we call on the elements of fire, air, earth, and water, and also Akasha to guide us through these realms, and to also call on any ancestors, any healed ancestors or power ancestors to come and guide us through this space of transformation as we create, because this is also an invitation for you to create along with me and to comment your reflections of what you're experiencing in this realm that transcends time and space. And so as we invoke our imagination, as we invoke this realm, and as we enter into it, may we find openings for transformation that might lead us into balance and harmony and re-glowing, recycling, rejuvenation, just regeneration. And how do the seeds of our actions manifest? And this is also a space to be in reflection of that. So here we are. And so excuse me. I'm reflecting on this kind of echoing vibration of my ancestors who are from this continent and who are Spanish and who came from Spain and also from Sweden and that region too. And yeah, just being present with what I do know of, what has passed down just through my existence. I think also entering into the space of the imagination and the subconscious can speak to that just apparent nature that is within each of us as well. Everyone, every being that we are made up of. And so I am seeing how this is reflected even in my engagement with these materials. Seeing how it is appearing. And so we want to now, and throughout these episodes, open spaces in our heart without filtration. And even just in noticing what we notice here as we enter into working on this, I'm noticing that the embroidery on this white material, I'm noticing that there are some cutouts here and throughout the pattern. cutouts in the patterns. Where layers behind them are revealed, which leads me to where we left off yesterday in these cutouts and all the leaves that we made, how we're going to be attaching our leaves. We made 6 leaves, how we're going to be attaching them to these tubes. If you can see here, we have these parts coming out from these slits that we cut into the pocket, and so the pieces coming out are from the layers behind, and so we're gonna enclose these as tubes, and that are also like stems for the leaves to come out. So we're going to be attaching those leaves. So let us just tilt the camera down. Plug in another light over here. Might get better lighting. At least as the sun is alive and revolving. Okay. So we'll start with making our tube, and as I go along this episode, we can be reminded that, as with all episodes, oh, I already had a thread cut for this. Well, now we have 2 threads. As I go along these, narrating what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, either consciously or subconsciously, these vocalizations or images in relationship with what comes up for you in each given moment can serve as an analogy. In the same way, some kind of divination oracle for passive or active divination might serve as guidance in your life. Okay, and the first thing that we want to do is, well, focus the camera onto my stitches, but my stitches that are going to be double threaded to keep this stem tube secure, and we're going to anchor a knot into the material. And our tails, we're going to enclose inside of the tube, double knotting. So how might enclosing our tails inside of the tube relate with your life and where you're at in your experience? And right now I'm figuring out how I'm going to enclose this tube, and so because I'm going to need each side to be able to fold in on itself twice. So what I'm doing is I'm folding each side once, and then as I put my thread on the edge, then that pulls it in a second time, and the two edges meet each other. So here, as I'm guiding the thread, there might be aspects that are leaning towards each other to be bound, and there's a thread, there's an intention that is joining them where they're met, and then they become enclosed. And I want to say in my mind's eye, but what I'm actually feeling is in the eye of my heart. Wants to speak, looking through a purple space. I feel like that purple space is kind of like the inside of this tube, and there's this like yellow light at the end of the tunnel. And I could associate those with like maybe the third eye or the crown, and then the solar plexus being our willpower. And I'm also like looking at this purple and yellow flower right now, and I'm wondering if this stem is even going to be able to enclose the leaf, moving into a whip stitch motion. And I don't know if it's gonna be able to enclose the leaf. So what might the leaf be? How might the leaf be attached? And there's kind of this longing as I stitch the two, belonging, elongated suffering, stretching. You know when stretching feels good, and then you know when stretching feels really not good, when we're cold and not warmed up, and then there's also stretching that feels like growing pains. And that's this elongating. Elongating nature of what we reach for, and not just what we reach for, but the spaces we clear in order to reach for them. And the relationships with our clearings and the layers of our orientation or plural. Okay, so we have this, and so how will we attach the leaves? Are the leaves going to be like wrapping around like this? Like are the leaves big enough to enclose around the stem perhaps? And can the stems flip? Inside so that whatever material is on the outside will be afraid. Will not be afraid. Do not be afraid, my leafies. Okay. And so this is what I'm thinking, is that I will stitch up this leaf, and then, well, I need to leave a little extra on this stem so that it can be tucked inside when the leaves are folded around the stem, but I also just want to close up the bottom of this leaf before I do that. And what's the need of knotting off and clipping anything if it's all continuous? I suppose knotting might make it stronger, but it could also give it more bulk. So right now it's up to me, but whatever you're doing would be up to you. Okay. And now we'll wrap around the stem, enclosing all of these, and going through the stem. Going through the stem as many times at different angles to really secure it as it is tucked inside of here. And then we'll come through. See, we have this smaller leaf still tucked inside, and so we want to secure that as we fold this. Doing more whip stitches, securing it down. And we're going to come back up through the stem to knot it off. Wow, I really love how this looks, because I love the striped stem, and I love how this opens. So now we're gonna make a knot inside the material, looping. Okay. And then after we've made 2 knots, I think we're pretty secure, and now we put our needle through the base so that when we cut our tails, it's going to have some distance from where the knot is. Okay. So there it is. And now we can move on to the next leaf. We already had a thread cut, so we can use that, and we're going to double thread it. Here's our double threads. I wonder if you can see those lines, those faint lines of the thread. Okay. And now we'll begin to enclose our next stem. We can knot off anchoring into here. And it seems like the seams are, the one side is higher than the other, so we're just going to do some whip stitches on this lower side until we reach the higher side to meet, to fold inward. For our second tube stem. Okay. Folding inward, wrapping around. Wrapping around to become our tube stem. And what is present in my heart now is that, like, that yellow light is shining brightly, and it's really bright, so it's almost like a white light. And it's saying that no matter the moment of doing right or doing wrong, we have a long ways to go, and at the same time, the ocean knows your name by the frequency as it holds you, as it has held you there, and it will hold you again. And the monstrous illuminations, the riveting anecdotes become less and less obscene, and then suddenly the words collapse on themselves, spiraling inward, and they release as water. Like coming out of a spout, and we're gonna knot. We're at the end of this tube, and we'll reach for the leaves. We'll reach for the next leaves to first enclose. We'll tuck it in with our scissors. The mising swamp demising swamp, folding in on itself, folding in and folding in and folding in and folding in, until one day it is clarified. One day the muddy waters of our being, they might find a glimpse of clarity in one cavern. But then what is the next? What is in the next cavern? How can it be seen in a way? How can it be acknowledged and appreciated in the uncertainty or in the mystery? Or how does relationship with that begin to discern tucking our stem into our leaf? Again, I'm gonna trim off this little floof. And what comes, what interpretation is given? Rest is given voice, is tested, beyond an explanation. And into our presence. Each moment of presence, each reception, each receptivity, each felt embrace is like the felted cringe when you wake up in the morning and realize that you have a choice, when you remember that you have a choice. Feeling in the oneness. How can there be boundaries through that? Perhaps through acknowledging and then deciding, realizing and recognizing emergence as it happens. Each time. And then How far does the medicine of the heart, how far does it go when it's available, when it's always available? These tiny blue plaids, tiny white plaids, a pattern in the sky, a collective mobility, collective control, and what would they do if the omnipresent negotiated between each particle, between each neighbor, between each fly on the wall, there's like a warm remembrance that reaches around, all the way around the rations, all the way around to the audience. If the water is your audience, then who is the seed? If your water blips through the reflection in the trees. Okay, we're gonna cut our tails now. Check it out. Tangles. 2 dangles. If the water blips between 2 trees, and then the leaf flickers, and then behind is the sky. Revealed behind is the sky. Blue sky today. As seen on our shirt here. Did you hear the bell? Or the movement behind the patch anchoring into our stem. With our double thread, our third stem. And you know, right here, our tails. We're tucking our tails in. That's all I'm saying. For now. And then sometimes in this space there is stillness, and sometimes in this space where you are, you find your pause button and or your volume button, whatever button you find. I don't know, what do I say? I've got buttons too. I mean, but I don't have any buttons to press right now. At least none that I want to press right now. Or do I? Are there any buttons that I need to press? What would the third stem have to say about that? That there's no recourse. That the program was disabled intentionally, and what remains is in question. That is what's in question. So what is to be said about that? About the stripes in our stems, about the banners, well, what we're saying now is that it's a tube. that's leading towards the leaf, that's leading towards the ground, because it will hang towards the ground. It's going to be hanging towards the ground. And the pressure of my elbow rolling on the table is making that rolling sound. And when I lift the pressure, the sound ceases. And now we have our leaves here. And so let us get to the scissors. Where's the scissors? Okay. To tuck in the leaf. Tucking in. And now we stitch it closed. Wow, you can really see all the details of my thumb. Isn't that beautiful? Just that, all those time, water. It's just incredible how many times I pick my thumb scabs. But in this situation, we've been soaking our thumb in vinegar water every night for over a year, a little over a year, and our nail is almost grown out all the way and is almost fully back to being healthy. And so this is what we're going to continue to do until it's fully grown out. And we could be doing this with our toes as well, but we're going through so much vinegar, and it kind of needed a break from that. So I'm wondering if like these leaves and in particular are like too narrow to wrap around the stem, and I'm wondering if the stem instead should be tucked inside of here. And then we can go from there. Do you see what we're doing? kind of going through each side and then coming back through, making sure to catch the stem with our needle, and the glowing sensation, sequential vibration of the leaves becomes disrupted when we stitch and restitch. And here I'm going to see what happens when these leaves come around and into like a pinch at the top, like the other leaves were. And then we think about what are our stitches telling us, and what are the materials telling us as they are now, and we need our pliers to get this needle out. Okay, and now we'll not keep our stitches afraid of unraveling, and will not them. Will not keep our stitches afraid of being afraid, and so will not fray. And as we will not fray. We will not frayed. They will not be frayed. Do not be afraid. Okay. Now that we've knotted, I knotted like up here. How do I show you? Right here is where the knots were, and now I've stuck my needle through here, and now it's sticking out, and so I'm gonna like pull it through and pull it very tight, and then when I clip it here, the tails will kind of like disappear, and they'll remain a distance away from the knot so that it does not come unknotted. So it doesn't unknot, so it stays knot. If that makes sense. Okay. And now we have our beautiful leaves dangling from our pocket, and then when I flip this to the inside and I think about how I might you see here. So these are our stems like coming through to the other side. And I'm thinking about like how will there's these edges here and then like an edge here and an edge, two edges down here that I need to finish off, and I'm wondering how I might finish it off. If it'll be in the same way that I finished off the slits in the front with the blanket stitch, or something else. I'm just thinking of this whole pocket in general. And how I was thinking of like these layers becoming fused together, and now I think they're like temporarily fused together because the leaves could always like tuck back into the pocket, or they could fall out like tails. That's funny. The leaf tails. Okay, so I guess we're gonna do the blanket stitch all the way around. But then the other thing is like, well, then it's still already not a functional pocket because there are holes on both sides of it. but the only real function it has is it's just perfectly for these leaves. And maybe you could even put your seeds in it, and then they might just like trail behind you. You might just leave a path of flowers or plants behind you. Cutting holes into the patriarchy, one blanket stitch at a time, if you know what I mean. And now we begin to do this. Starting here on the edge, like halfway down the seam, just 'cause that's what feels like the best thing to do in this moment. And then we begin. We begin to go through.
I hear these words from an ancestral guide saying, "These are yours. These wings are yours. To share." To share in the presence of you and me. Who is you and who is me is for you to decide. And we're going to clip this mitered area so that we can embroider around without having to dip in to a crevice. We're just going to cut it off of the surface. And then what we have are some bits, some triangle bits. If you know what I mean. And here
a rectangle bit, almost like where the tails, where the stem tubes begin. In more than one way. Okay. Coming around. Coming around. What are your limits? Is it a limit? Or is it a like carving out a flow? Is it a limit or is it a guide? And this exchange, and now I'm imagining everything happening all at once, and then that is what each individual is. And then there's this other layer of like the relationships. And there, what are the relationships? Is it acknowledging, is it acknowledging our interconnectivity, or like so many different possibilities unique to our own solar system? Na okay. We got through like part of it, and I think the blanket stitches is gonna be, it's gonna be okay. Don't, 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 no, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey. Do, 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 do. Do, do. So let's see where we're at. Can you see this? We've gone around to here and we still have to go around this much. All right. Pulling our thread, threading our thread, our black thread, and here where did the needle go? Did it fall? It's not in my, it's not tucked into my shirt. It was like right on the table, but I was thinking maybe it fell, or maybe it like magnetized to a scissor or something. Oh, I see it. Is that it? Or is that a thread? Oh, that's a thread. Oh. Oh my gosh. Can you believe it? It's right here. I was like, I threaded my needle and then I was looking for my needle. That's what just happened. So sometimes we find ourselves looking for something that we already have, and it's just waiting for us to pick it up. Time and time again. Oh. We've got some nodding going on here. Nodding in our heads, like we're nodding to the music or we're nodding off. Either way. We're going to now continue with our blanket stitch, and if you're nodding off, wrapped inside of a blanket stitch, feeling held, feeling unafraid, because you will not fray while wrapped in the blanket stitch. Until the blanket stitch is released, that part will not fray. But sometimes things fray inside of the blanket stitch, but not beyond. They fray to, but not through it. But sometimes they do fray through it. And worn, if they find themselves worn a lot, perhaps that would happen. Excuse me for my burp. Okay. Are there any messages from our heart coming through? To be true. What is it to be true? What is it to be true to you? What is it to be true to me? What is it to be true to this endeavoring allowance for the microcosm to be revealed in the macro, and the exercise of interpretation? Does that become, do we allow that to become an exercise, or do we not? Do we allow it to tend to itself? Who holds this reality in place? Whose hearts are alive? messages from beyond, calling forth a remedy prescribed to those who sculpt with hairs or fibers a blissful contradiction to the awakened tensions, and it is an attunement to harmonize the rainbow and speculate what standards you might hold, and in that place, is there something to be told, experienced, revealed, seen, exposed? Is there something to realize? Is there something to be said indirectly? Is there a code to transcribe the frequencies of the cosmos? Depending on whose lens you see through, and whose lens is embodied, and who speaks for those whom they embody. And who shapeshifts amongst us, and who flows through. And who uncovers the blanket stitch. Who's afraid? Who's no longer afraid? With the blanket stitch held intact. The blanket stitch held intact. The blanket stitch held intact. The blanket stitch is held intact. Whose blanket stitch twists into a stem. and is met here in between these two stems. These two stems here are going down through to the other side. Meanwhile, we are traversing the edge in between and in between the transcription is a subscript noting the purple petal is not forgotten. And that reminds me of this subscript of this piece, the poem of Gestating Narratives. If you'd like to see, here we have our hanger loop, and then the poem, which reads, can I get the whole thing in there? Fruit is sun glow, pulls through dreaded shoulder, relaxed shoulders. Warmth, I am, escape shell, held by wonder, emerge through. Blackened backs, shadows turned, face to the sun, to the fruit. Morning turns and swells, responsive in rising. And I wanted to say, face to the sun, to the fruit. The face is the fruit. Face is this juicy fruit. But then perhaps the whole body is the juicy fruit. But maybe the body is not a juicy fruit. Maybe at one point. Maybe it depends on who's talking. I'm just imagining that tunnel. Oh, that tunnel. The fruit to drink the water. To drink the water. That fruit. Watered. And whose fruit? Who reaps the fruit of their own tenderness. Not just a child, but also like our creations, and not just our creations, but because we're not our existence is not stagnant. If it's stagnant, then it becomes eventually some sort of decomposition. And so to be vital, to be producing fruit, is that to be circulating and regenerating. Does it depend on the plant? Because some plants don't produce fruit every year, but they still are alive. So sometimes the vital essence that we bear may take multi-seasons to become fruit. Some plants are not even fruit per se, but then how do they propagate? Is there something that, what do they eat? Perhaps there are things that do not even engage with fruit directly. And so it is an indirect interconnectivity that might be apparently in direct and some ways, and it might be direct in others. Yes. We're coming around. We're coming around. Yes, around. Yes, let's come around. When you come around. When you come around. Around to what is found. No, 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 no. What has come around? What has come around? Around. What has come around? Around. 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 How many times will you come around in a season, in a single season, in one season, bending and stretching and folding and turning our realities, spoken into existence. Am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? in this blanket stitch. What is the stitch called, you say, in your realms? What is the stitch, you say, in your realms? What is the stitch, you say, in your realms? I don't. What is the stitch, you say, in your realms? Down and through and up, around, and catch the loop and pull it tight, and back behind the other way, and catch the loop before today. We've gone all the way around, and now we can tunnel our needle through a bit before we clip. And there we have it. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Can you see? This is it. The lighting is pretty blue, but that's what is happening. And yeah. Okay. Now, what is such, my standing up, my bottom is sore. And I look outside and there's a rabbit figurine that's tipped over. It makes me want to put it back. Okay. All right. We have, looks like, so what do we have to do next? It looks like we have some things. I thought, that's so weird. I thought that we already unpicked that, and then now I'm seeing that we unpicked this other one, and this sleeve cuff here, how we had opened it up to take out that piece that was cut out to fully remove it. And now that was just one sleeve, and now I'm realizing that there's a whole other part. It has the same kind of situation happening, so we need to release these stitches so that we can pull this out. Boom, 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 boom. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, what is it focusing on? Focusing on our stitches, clipping our stitches. This is a double needle top stitch here, and I'm going to be clipping every 3 stitches. Just putting my scissors in there and clipping every 3 stitches, and we're going to do this just on the front side, and or it doesn't have to be the front necessarily, just whichever is easier, just as long as it's only one side, because the trick is that you do this on one side and then on the back you can just lift it up. Lift the thread. We don't need to take out the entire cuff, just this part, so we're going to just be removing from here to here, not any further. And so, you see, we'll just keep going. Da, 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 da. Okay. Edge here, it's still kind of stuck in there, so we're going to unclip down here as well. Sometimes we need to release more than just what we think we need to release in order to clear out. The full extent. Okay, now we've released that part, and now what else? What else? It appears that we need to, I have these pins here that want to sew something together. And then it makes me wonder, do I just stop halfway through to where they're pinned? Let's hold up the situation and see what's going on. And turn it and look at the back. There's that twisted seam area that needs some work. Not really wanting to do that today, but we have this seam up here we could finish. We have this seam. It's like, okay. I think just like overlapping here. Oh, you can't quite see what I'm doing, but there's this collar. Okay, this area where there's like multiple layers of collars and cuffs coming together. This full seam can be flipped around and finished and then pleated. And then it's like too short now to tuck into the sleeve, but maybe it could tuck into the placket if we open up the placket a little bit. Just like half the placket, just enough to be able to tuck that part in as a little pleat. But first we have to finish some of these seams. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Okay. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Okay. I don't think that this flower and plaid-like material responds very well to like holding creases or anything. So I'm thinking that we're just gonna sew it without like pre-pressing it or anything. Here's our foot. Okay. We'll just start with the seams. We'll start with the first seams that we can really start with, because some of them we have to do before we do others. Remember our scissors. So then we have to stitch before we stitch others. We have our lighting. Okay. I wonder. No. Okay. I was wondering if. Oh, we can't do that. Okay. Okay. So we have some space to work with, but this there's like a leaflet arm on my sewing machine, and yeah, speaking of all these leaves, and it looked like the arm, like holding it up, was like cracking or something. But actually now I'm realizing that in the other sleeve, it's also too short, to stitch into the cuff, so I'm gonna release the placket here as well. See, there's this pleated part that wants to come up and or this was like a placket, right? In the cuff here. And I'm taking apart this because we had released one side of the sleeve from the cuff, and now we want it to kind of like pleat in and not be able to open, but to be stitched into the cuff and create a pleat. We're bridging not as a materialist, but bridging the experience of the dance flowing through, as if existence were a dance, and at times it is apparent that it is, and at times a stream, at times like a rocky stream, and at other times other things, other experiences, other ways to describe them. And now, before we tuck these into the plackets that we've just opened up, we need to fold in and do a little twice turn finish here. Just lining up the you can see the foot, I'm just lining up the inside of the seam with the inside of the foot, because there's like a 30-second of an, or there's like a, I don't want to use inches, but I was gonna say there's like a 32nd of an inch, like the where the needle is piercing and where the inside of the foot is, at least the left foot, it's like the needle is in between the 2 feet, and then there's a space, and then the edge of the left foot, it's like if I line this, I just like having something to line up my stitch with, because I don't like looking at the needle, because I find that my stitches my seams are more steady when I line them up with some part of the machine, whether it's like the edge of a foot or the outside here. I have these lines that I could follow if that's what I wanted to line up, if I was doing something else. But right now I'm just focused on this, and also thinking about not only where's like kind of both, I'm keeping an eye out for both sides, this kind of parallel, the parallel timelines are traversing the foot and the needle through time and space. You feel me? Okay. And then what are the parallel timelines of this seam? I suppose only the seam would know. And maybe even the next one. As we prepare to do another stitch like this, and I'm realizing that the tension is kind of off. Will that fix it? Who knows? I could test it. Or I could just start this seam and see how it goes, and if it doesn't work, I mean, I could like stop and take it out and try to fix it. Because ultimately that would have a higher integrity. Maybe that's what the parallel timelines are telling me, that I was going to be sewing that seam twice. And unpicking it twice as well, because it was already a seam before I unpicked it the first time. So let's see if tightening the top tension fixed that for us. The tension disc. I'm gonna keep going until there's some space for me to look at it. Yeah. That seems a little bit better. What if I tighten it a little bit more? Let's keep going. Keep going. Down the same. Down the same. Yeah, I mean, okay, is it getting better? Each time I tighten it, is it getting better? Yeah. I think it's getting better. Is it worth going back to doing the other seam? I mean, I should do that. I really should do that. And I'm getting these images in my mind's eye of this, like, this place, this dream place that I've gone to many times, and it's like tucked away in this mountain where nobody ever really goes. I mean, they might go there, but they're usually not there when I'm there. And yeah, that's what this place. It reminds me of my cousins, going camping with my cousins. Because in my dreams, we do that. Still looking all right to me. In my dreams, like, we all kind of arrive at different times. And different places, and we find each other in different places. And I'm realizing that I'm still on my period. And we're gonna pleat this. Can you see? Okay. This is the seam we just sewed, like, all the way down, right? Like the sleeve, the underarm and side seam that once was. And this is the part of the placket that we opened up. And so now we're going to pleat this material in, fold it inside the placket. Okay. And I think we're going to stitch it like this, because that seems like a seam to me, if you know what I mean. What I mean is that there's not so much bulk in trying to stitch over all these other things. So just if I can keep them in place here while putting the stitch back into the placket, then that would be ideal. And now the reveal, when we turn it around and we see we caught the other side. And that's the blessing of working with kind of the creases that were already there, because if the materials have been there for a while, they'll just go back to the same place. And now we have our beautiful pleat tucked inside. And you can't see because it's facing the table, but it's sticking inside here and then flipping this way. We didn't want to just stitch it down like that, like because then it would go over like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 layers of material, and that would just be really bulky. And so we just stick it inside of there. Okay. And now we're going to do this same thing to a situation that's happening on the other side of the other sleeve, okay? But first, we need to check and make sure that we just need to see if we're still happy with that seam that we sewed, because remember we were concerned about the tension. And yeah, I mean, one side seems okay to me, and then the other side seems like, can you see this? The seam is just like, it looks like the thread is just floating on top, whereas this side you can actually see that each stitch has a stitch, and the idea is that like the top thread and the bottom thread interlock right inside of the material. But if one tension is like pulling more than the other, it kind of depends, it kind of changes for each material, needs different kind of tension, but it might be pulling more on one side, and so then it looks really taut on one side, and the other side is like still perforated at each stitch, and the other side just looks like it's kind of floating on top, and you can actually see where it's the bottom thread is interlocking along the top, and or the bottom, whichever side that it's kind of imbalanced. And yeah, I think we're gonna do that. We're gonna unpick it. We're gonna unpick it because of the parallel timelines. In one timeline, I don't unpick it, and it loses integrity. It loses integrity. The integrity is imbalanced. One side is loose and one side is tense, and they're not holding each other in an equal embrace. And in another timeline, the tension is balanced, and and it regenerates more balance just by its presence. What does that say about our agency and how we move? It says, well, I guess the first thing that comes up is like, perhaps our clothes have as much power as we give them. And then another part of me says that there's an expression in all of the energy that goes into the character of a garment. From this kind of making space to even just like the character that is created through being worn and going through experiences and having that awareness become a part of the energy in the garment. And then also makes me think of associations. And the how our relationship with materials is present in the space, because we're saying something even if we're not saying something when we get dressed. Okay, now we've picked out this seam. Just filling out the other timeline that might be possible. Stitching through and stitching new and stitch about a person crowding all your lullabies, and now I'm finding indirection. There sits between the eyes. Which eyes does it sit between? The ones within my palms. Which ones does it sit between? The ones on the trunks of trees. The ones within the holes down below my dreams. Wow. So much better. Okay. Glad we did that. Thanks for coming along with me on that one. Thanks for recognizing the parallel timelines as well. And we're going to do the same thing with this pleat. Tucking inside the placket. Okay. Check the other side, and it's okay. We caught it in there. And that's for sure. Okay. And now we can think about, ooh, the other side. On the other side, I'm just looking at these other seams and like what is happening, and like how are we gonna finish? How are we gonna finish them? Don't know. I do not know. I know how I'll finish this one. I'm doing another while we're at it. Might as well just make another double twice turned hem. last time we did a parallel stitch, a parallel timeline stitch, I had to take out the stitch and then redo it. And so I was just thinking like, oh, we'll do another parallel timeline stitch. And then I was like, but I don't want to have to take this seam out again. So let's just do it, you know, let's just do it well this time. We have our tension right. And then I was thinking like, well, parallel timeline does not mean it has to be, you know, it's a new seam. It's not going to mean the same thing for this seam. So in this one, just, I know that there's this parallel awareness, at least, in wanting to, in the lines between the edge of the hem and where the edge of the seam, and then where the ridge is, where the stitch is. So it's actually like three parallel lines. And even more if you think about all the folds that are happening. So there's a lot of different realms constituting even this one even this one being, gestating the narratives of all of them. Now we're going to close up this collar, cuff, overlapping the previous stitches. About the length of my thumbnail, and then with the needle down, pivoting and stitching. And now going back around, focusing on lining the edge of the material. Here with the edge of the foot. We're going to pivot with the needle down, lining up where we're going to the line along where we'll stitch next, overlapping the stitches about the length of my thumbnail, and here we have it. Closed it all back up. We closed it up, closed up the cuff, closed it up, and the button remains. The cuff is closed now. But that doesn't mean it's buttoned shut, because now the button is on another side. What would it mean to then button it? Oh my goodness, am I gonna be able to stitch this down? I don't want to stitch it down. I might just have to take these buttons off because it feels like a cuff. It's a good reminder, like, is it gonna just return to what it was before? Not so much. Not really, but maybe parts, maybe aspects might return to something that once was, but it won't be oriented the same way. And that is still a transformation in of itself. And so now I'm going to stitch this in to place somehow, because part of me wants to do something else, but it's like there's a pleat on the edge, and on the edge of a material, and then also like it just stops halfway down the seam, and I'm like, really? What does that mean? And I'm backing up with my back stitch. Now moving ahead. Don't want that to get caught in there. Okay. My thought is that, like, we're just gonna put that in place for now and somehow finish the edge and this part. And part of me is thinking about a French seam might work well. There's like this part to be folded in a twice turned. Twice turned, twice turned. Okay. So we tapered our twice turns as they neared the French seam. And the next thing to do will be the other side of the French seam, to complete the French seam, which we might as well just do right now. We have 1 minute left with each other today, and let's just finish this seam here. Okay. Going forward, going backwards, and forward again. How do I harmonize with the machine? I think I've asked that before. Do I even want to? Do I even want to? What does a machine do? How does a machine harmonize with me? Maybe it's when like my knee presses the power button and we go. We go. And now we back tack and forward. Okay. Oh, we should have kept going a little bit more until I think we reach a meeting place with the stitches. Okay, as they begin to overlap. And now we found a place of meeting, a meeting point. And okay. So all right. That's it for today. So let us come over to our flag. And thank our ancestors and all of the elements and spirits for guiding us through this process. And we now release you and release this plane. Until next time, thank you, everyone.